Well, hello there, motherfuckers. I just got through watching Louie on Netflix, the first season. This is a show that I've kind of stayed away from, from a long time. Never really gave this man Louis C.K.'s comedy a chance. I saw a little bit of it. I guess the portions that I saw, I really didn't pay attention to, or they weren't his best jokes. So I stayed away from it for quite a bit. But I gotta say, this is a pretty good, not just pretty good, but this is a show that I really like, very into. It's one of the shows that I was able to watch consistent episodes and not get sick of it. I like the idea behind this show. There's not a lot to it. It's basically about Louis C.K. He gets into weird situations. It doesn't feel artificial like a lot of other comedies out there. To me, here's my example of like a bad artificial comedy. How I Met Your Mother. Now that show right there is a fucking abomination. That is a show where I've given it quite a few chances, and that show is beyond disappointing. Not only that, but it's got terrible acting in it. Horrible fucking acting, and all the situations are very forced and contrived. It's just random joke after random joke, and all of them are missed. Sometimes you hear the expression, it's hit or miss. Well, every single one of those jokes is missed. Louis is the exact opposite of that. These jokes are like, I was surprised, every single one of them is a hit. And it's not even like a barrage of jokes, it's situation comedy. Instead of it being verbal with a little bit of situations and dumb situations mixed in with How I Met Your Mother, this is another impressive comedy. And it seems that a lot of these comedies on FX are very well done because they're not really held to a certain, level of censorship. This is also seen in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. FX kind of lets it go a little bit more, and this is probably what these comedies need. They're always so boxed in, and they don't feel fresh, and they don't feel new, and they don't feel funny. The only show that has really gotten away with being funny on regular network television has been Big Bang Theory. That's the only show that I think is genuinely funny, and that's really good. That's available like on a major network. But here, I think I should kind of elaborate more on what this show is about. It's pretty much his situations. Through these situations, Louis C.K. he gets material for his comedy. And, you could draw some comparisons towards Seinfeld, but in a lot of ways, it's not really like Seinfeld. The situations are a little bit more realistic, I have to say. Yeah, they're a little bit more realistic than with Seinfeld. Now, Seinfeld, you can relate. You could, empathize with the characters to some level. But, in Seinfeld, there is a level of fantasy in it. However, with Louis, these situations are all pretty realistic from what I've seen. Couple episodes here and there, kind of border on fantasy, but for the most part, it stays grounded. That's what I like. And a lot of people will probably throw some barbs at this show, and they'll say, it's not escapist enough. Seinfeld had a little bit more of a lighthearted feel. Louis is more dark, and maybe some people could criticize it as being too realistic. The reason why we watch television and movies in the first place is to escape, after a rough day at work, or, what have you. A lot of times you want to, escape real life and see something that you don't see in real life, because if you do, that will just remind you of real life and defeats the purpose. Well, however, I'm not like that. I, don't really need everything to be so escapist all the time. And sometimes I can appreciate a slice of life. And that's pretty much what's being shown here in Louis. It's funny, but as I said, it stays grounded. It's got its feet firmly planted on the ground, and doesn't really, levitate to a level of ridiculousness at times. There are some ridiculous situations, but then again, life is ridiculous at times. And, Louie kind of shows that. It's very real, and I like his comedy. I'm willing, actually, to now give his stand-up a chance. I haven't really been able to sit down and really watch any of his stand-up, and now this show's kind of urged me to do so. I really enjoy the type of comedy. Some of it's pretty vulgar, pretty nasty, but some comedy kind of uses that just as a tool. But Louie kind of has a story based around the vulgarness and everything, sort of like a George Carlin. And I like that, and I really like this show. I think that this is really a genuine show, and I think this is something that really comes from Louis C.K.'s heart. I could really see that there's a lot of effort put into this show to make it entertaining and funny and real. It's not like a show where you just you face palm and be like, oh geez, like How I Met Your Mother. I mean, that show right there is it's trash. It's fucking garbage, and that show by itself deserves a rant, of its very own, just to say how terrible it really is. And people who enjoy that show, I mean, they really have to take a look at their sense of humor. Now, I know it kind of seems a little bit foolish when we talk about shows like this to, question people's sense of humor, because it's a matter of opinion and taste. But sometimes you look at those types of jokes that they do there on How I Met Your Mother, and you're just like, how could you possibly find this funny? It's really just, to the point where it's insulting your intelligence. And this brings me to another point, another avenue of observation here about the Louie show. Never insults your intelligence. Never, asks you to, just remove your brain for a moment. No, this is a show that actually lets you keep your brain, lets you keep your normal train of thought, and, just enjoy it. There's, you don't have to dumb yourself down. Actually, a lot of the comedy here and a lot of the situations are pretty thought-provoking, pretty philosophical, and I like the fact that he treaded on ground that hasn't been treaded on before. Some awkward situations, things realistically in life, things that are very awkward, such as Louie when he goes into a club. He feels very uncomfortable. He's not really that great, with talking to strangers and accepting help from strangers. And there's a couple episodes about this, and it plays on the fears of human beings. It talks about these things. Sometimes it's hard to watch, but in the good way, because you're like, oh man, this is so awkward. I get that way sometimes with certain shows. Like, it's kind of hard to watch because it's so awkward, and that's good. If you ever find yourself in that position when watching a show where you just find that it's, awkward and hard to watch, but in a good way, not because it's bad quality, but, when you're like, oh man, they're getting into this situation, and, you just can't bear to look because, you're afraid for the outcome, to see the outcome played out. And that's good, because that means that you would probably be scared in the same way if that happened in your life. And that's exactly the types of things that I enjoy about Louie show. I mean, this is a real, genuine show that's, you keep your eyes glued to the screen. You really want to see what happens next. It's kind of like an episode of your life unfolding. Alright, so full recommendation for this show. Rating it from 9 to 10. I think I gotta give this show a solid 9, 9.5. Very, very much bordering on a 10. I don't want to give this show a 10 yet because it hasn't been completed. But so far, and I've gotten about 1-2 episodes into season 2 already, I've got to say that I am quite impressed with this show, and I'm very much looking forward to the future episodes. I'm not really too sure what season they're on now. It's, I think, 3 or 4 currently, but this is a show that should definitely continue. And really reach up into the higher seasons. It's a very deserving show of your viewership, and definitely it's a show I'm going to be watching for some time to come. All right.